delighted to be joined in the studio by Ray McGann, Managing Director, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, that's HPE Ireland.
Correct.
So we usually like to start these conversations by getting a kind of the human side, Ray. So to get a little bit of a sense of your journey to where you are now, please.
Okay. So Ray McGann, as you said, born in Ennis, County Clare, one of 6 boys. So we started our journeys as teachers. I spent 5 years in Blakestown, just outside Dublin, or just Dublin 15 actually, and great years, fantastic opportunity. But we took a career break in the late 80s and we went to London, and I found an opportunity to join Woodchester. So for most people, they will remember Woodchester as a significant Irish financial services company, which got acquired, but it was a great foundation. And being Irish in Woodchester in the UK was kind of unique because there weren't many Irish other than the managing director, Billy Kane, who's still in the financial services industry today. So I spent several years, about 3 years in the UK, learning that industry. Our eldest was on the way home. We were on the way home. Our eldest was being born in March of 91. So we came home. But I stayed in the financial services industry. So working then for many years with the like of Bank of Scotland, with KBC. But in about late 90s, 99 or so, I ventured into what I would call the American Technology Financial Services Organizations. So my first foray was with Compaq Computers, or Compaq Capital as we used to call it. And that was where we would start, we would provide funding for companies who wanted to acquire the Compaq technology. That was a short stint, actually it was only about 2 years in that space when I transitioned into Lucent Technologies. Again, a very strong name in the Irish market until acquisitions, and it's moved and morphed its name since the acquisition trail. But at that time, very strong name in the Irish market. And I took a significant career shift, and I went into managing the operations of the shared services for the financial back office for Lucent Technologies in Europe. And that was a crash course in learning how a company actually worked. After you did the commercial transactions, the managing and running of a company, the managing the general ledger, sub-ledger, the cash management, and the operational intensity of running a company and managing the assets of a company, it was probably the best thing I ever did, because it gave me a real rounded sense of, I had a lot of experience in commercial sales, but I didn't have any real appreciation for back office, support office, asset management engagements. So I ran that for about 5 years, just under 5 years. And then I got a call to come back to HPE, as it was HPE at the time. And all the mergers that happened, HPE had bought Compaq and all the other acquisitions that had occurred. And that merger of those two organizations had completed at that stage. So it was, a clear path for the company. So I rejoined the group in 2005 and there since.
Yeah. And you're managing director now. I mean, I'd love to get your view on, what makes a good leader, what makes a good managing director.
Yeah, I think that Anne is one of those perennial and the many volumes and tones of books written on the topic. From my personal point of view, the debate about born or developed, I think it's a mixture of both. I think you have certain attributes that you bring to the role and to your career. And then you have people you have admired, people you have taken guidance from and watched and observed. And I think that probably shapes, by the time you reach a role that you have a leadership role or a senior leadership role, you've had all those influences over the years. And I pick out people in HPE, people in Lucent Technologies, people in Compaq, people in Woodchester, over all the years where you watched their behaviors. You listened to the way they communicate. Listen to how they get, messages in tough times, messages in good times, and how they moderate between and how they can keep motivating people through. Because ultimately, what we're all looking to do is take the group of people we have and develop solutions and develop engagements with our customers and partners to the benefit of the customers and partners and to the benefit of the organization we're leading. So I think when you put it all together, it's a combination for me of all of those components. Self-awareness, self-awareness is usually said by people who are not self-aware. And I would class myself in that place too, quite often. But being able to take feedback, because the fact that you perceive yourself to be in a leadership role doesn't mean you know all the answers, and invariably you don't. But being able to actively listen to people around you and people that are advising and giving you feedback. And the more open you are to feedback, the more you get it. And some of it is good, some of it is not so good. But the not so good stuff, feedback is probably the best learning, because if you're told honestly, listen, this didn't land well, that content didn't make sense, or I lost you in that communication. So when you come back to it, or you get an opportunity to revisit that, you do it with that mindset. Yeah. So to me, it's kind of that evolution of all those components, and I think it's probably, you're never really the full article, ever. You're just continuously learning until you do something different.
And then I suppose, I'm keen to ask you about those kind of areas that keep leaders awake at night, and very relevant, I think, to HPE. When we do research at the moment, the big areas that come out are, obviously enough, artificial intelligence, generative AI, and cybersecurity, and then of course sustainability, which I think we'll probably come back to. But tell me a little bit, if we can start with AI, your own thoughts on the kind of the challenges, the myths, the misconceptions around it.
Well, I think first of all, the myths and the myths and legends and magic, it is a very difficult thing for people to get their heads around, and to distinguish between what is fanciful and what is fact. And I think from a HPE point of view, we're really focused on the enablement that AI and Gen AI can deliver to communities, to worldwide, to our citizens, to people. And when you look at it from that vantage point, the enormous capacity of AI to do incredible work in medical research, in diagnostics, in drug development, in predictive analytics, whether it's in climate prediction, whether it's in development of new wind turbines that actually are far more efficient, far more sustainable, and far more reliable, or whether it's in supply chain, food chains. So when we look at it from that vantage point to say, that's where we put our time and effort into and our energy into. But I think we step back a little bit and say, well, what are the frameworks that guide the engagements on AI? And first of all, you have, the like of the EU AI Act, which, has just limped its way across December 8th or 9th. I think all of us know that legislation typically follows a little late or a little behind the curve for no other reason than it can't be ahead of every curve. So that then puts responsibility back on our organizations and on HPE specifically. What have we done? Well, we have an ethics compliant committee that was set up by EC members, so our executive committee, and that's setting out our charter for how we engage with AI and how we engage it for both ourselves and for our customers and partners. And it's based on sort of 5 principles, and that committee are responsible for the principles. So one is privacy, ensuring that any of the data, because data is the underlying currency within any of AI models, so the privacy of the individual is protected. The second one is H for humanity or human rights as part of your framework to ensure that you haven't infringed human rights with whatever service offerings you've created. The next one is inclusive. Have you looked at bias, natural bias, accidental bias in the way you're developing your tools and services? The next 2 are then it's responsible. It's responsible use of the tool sets, and then robust. Is it robust? Is it secure? Is the data transfer between cloud, private cloud, in and back? Is it secure? Is it recoverable in the sense of a disaster recovery? So they're the principles, the 5 principles that HPE at an executive level set out to support our own use and that of our customers and partners and the services we create. But to underpin that, there's two subcommittees. One is very specifically looking at risks related to people. That subcommittee are responsible for ensuring that they focus on risks that could be attached to people, to privacy that I've just described. And the second is around risks around business models. So, from a HPE point of view, we have, created that environment that we are very actively managing, monitoring, and developing the principles and the roadmap for the use and development of AI. So we see it as our responsibility to do that. And I'm quite sure that most organizations will be doing similar, but that's what we have done. So you take it to the regulation, take it to what you do as an individual organization to ensure what you do. So you don't maybe have that much impact what others do, but you know what you do. And you take care of what you do in regards to any market or any condition or any service offering, but particularly in AI. So I think we have a robust process that is sponsored by our Chief Executive, Antonio Neri, and his executive committee, which gives me personally great faith that what we do and what we'll deploy have those principles embedded.
Yeah. And it makes it a hell of a lot easier to comply with the regulations as well.
Well, in some ways,
you're future-proofing
well,
in a way.
That's a really good point, Anna, and it's probably influencing each other. In terms of, well, here's what we're doing, and then obviously in the US you have the Biden executive order, which equally allows for a framework in the US. So you put those together, and you have got that influence between the commercial organizations and the government organizations and the country views. But there's always challenges. Yeah. There's always agitation around what I'd want more flexibility on that fourth category. Yeah. But if you're having the dialogue, it's a good dialogue.
Yeah. And tell me, we also mentioned that idea of, sustainability obviously is kind of on everybody's minds as well. And I suppose the role big tech can play in climate action.
So there's the kind of a couple of branches of this that I think are critical. So first of all, from a HPE point of view, like I've said, we started in the late 30s. We went international in the early 50s. The principle that was applied by Hewlett Packard at that stage was about doing good in the environment, doing good for the social fabric of the countries or places you worked in. So that social good was kind of hardwired in to your mindset. In 1992, which is that 30 odd years ago, all of the equipment that we make was designed for reuse. And that's a significant, mindset, because it says, okay, we put all of this raw materials, we've done the engineering, we've manufactured the equipment, we've put it out into the open market, but it comes back in 3 or 5 or 10 years' time and can't be used by anybody. You can't retro fix that problem. You have to forward fix that problem. And so HP has at its core that mindset that every device we have will be reusable. Might be a fridge, might be in a car, might be in a HPE technology environment in the future, but it will be used. So we underpin that ultimately by use programs and reuse programs. And we'll come back to the use programs in a moment under the HPE GreenLake platform. But the reuse piece is, okay, how do you manage infrastructure that is no longer viable in the organization? So one of my roles is supporting the after use of products on a global basis. We have 2 technology renewal centres, one in Erskine in Scotland for Europe and one in Andover in Massachusetts for the North American market, and then we have sub-supports in Asia. So that return of product, the engineering of that product, the re-engineering of that product, and making sure that A, the product is viable for second use, because it isn't always reusable. Secondly, testing that it's authentic, because quite often, in supply chains over time, product finds its way into the servers or the storage device that are not authentic and have real damage potential. So our ability to do firmware testing, hardware testing, and identify product that is counterfeit. And typically when we find that, we actually do go back through the supply chain to find exactly where that emerged from And sometimes it's accidental acquisition by sub-partners, sub-supply chains. Other times may not be as innocent.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the reality is we do follow through that supply chain to find where it can so that we can shut that down and get brand people in to support. But when we're happy that it is authentic, when we're happy that it is reusable, it's then re-engineered. And that re-engineering allows us to put back into the market assets at huge scale. And we're millions of assets across the globe, literally millions of assets. So that is our reuse process. So we take it back, we ensure it's managed properly, and then we rehouse it, rehome it. They're running in at the moment, globally, around 95% of what we get back in the compute part of our business finds a new home.
Wow.
98% rough order magnitude of the client devices, so our HP colleagues, gets back into a new use. So it's a phenomenon, but you have to manage it. It is a very controlled program. It is a very focused program. And what doesn't make the grade is put through a very structured recycling program. So recycling is good, so you can capture the raw materials, you can capture, the base metals and the plastics. So it's a good process. Not as good as being able to put it straight back into use. But the control of those assets is critical because whatever doesn't make the grade has got to be managed carefully so it doesn't wind up in landfill. And the last piece of landfill, when you look at technology in landfills, it's about 6% of landfill. So it's probably seen as a small piece of the problem. But the toxicity of the equipment is significant. It's running in the 65 to 70% of toxic waste. So we've all got an obligation to manage that. So that's kind of the after use side of the HPE story.
It's kind of the future as well, reuse. I mean, it's what everybody's talking about at the moment.
And we're kind of happy to say that this is not a particular bandwagon that we jumped on.
No.
30 plus years ago, we were focused on, hey, you have to be able to reuse these. You can't keep taking out of, take, use and discard. You have to take, use and reuse at the core of your mindset. But, we know that if companies left to own the devices, won't necessarily know how to do this.
Yeah.
They don't have the expertise, they don't have the hardware, they don't have the access to firmware and upgrades, and they don't have the people and the technical and technologists and engineers that can do it. So we know we can, and we have made that commitment. So, it's 20 plus years or 25 years plus that we're doing it, but HPE is 30 plus with the reuse mindset.
Fantastic, I love that. And, the whole area of digital transformation and I suppose the importance of, not everybody will be aware of this, but the HPE GreenLake Edge to Cloud platform. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so again, I'm going back to our Chief Executive, Antonio Neri, setting out a vision for how we engage with the market, our customers and our partners. And I mentioned earlier the hybrid cloud focus, so being able to support people who want to use private cloud, i.e. their own equipment in their own data centers, people who want to use co-location, so it's not in their data center, but it's in a location that they've chosen, or it's public cloud. So HPE GreenLake Edge to Cloud is designed to say, we'll work together with you to transform your organization, transform your infrastructure, and provide you the right-sized infrastructure. And somebody mentioned to me recently, well, does that mean you sell less? I said, well, if you look at the principles of HPE, all the way, or HPE as we would have called it in the 30s and 40s, it's not about selling you more, it's about providing you that which you need and the way you need it, not any other principle. That is the principle. So the HPE GreenLake sits very squarely in that space. So we find that customers, when they really understand what we're doing to help them transform, really engage with us. And they engage on the basis of the right size of their organization. As and when they grow or when they contract, we can move the compute power and storage power that we're serving to them through the HPE GreenLake structure up and down. That flexibility is built into it. The growth is built into it. The evolution, and I just focus on the evolution of that and where Galway kicks into an important role is the evolution of HPE GreenLake platform. So rather than just owning all of your infrastructure and supplying you the full infrastructure, providing you platform services. So you might want to buy a piece. You might want to use a piece of the organization or piece of our infrastructure, and being able to serve you that on a platform basis allows that flexibility that customers want. So, from a sustainability point of view, from HPE GreenLake, they're absolutely married together.
Well, our partners on this series are IDA Ireland, and I can't let you go without asking you about, I suppose, the where HPE Ireland fits into the organisation globally, and I suppose where IDA has been supportive, when it comes to things like digital transformation or sustainability.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about
that.
Well,
I think, so first of all, if I go back to the HPE Ireland within the larger group, I spoke earlier about the 4 locations, the over 800 people that we have working for the group in all those different contexts. Those service offerings from that cybersecurity, physical and online and virtual support. And actually, as a small segue, I think culturally, the other part of my responsibility as the HPE Ireland MD is the cultural attributes. And we have 8 individual employee resource groups that look at various different aspects of engaging with our communities. And one is around volunteering. And in volunteering, from a worldwide basis, they're quite amazing statistics. There's over 100,000 hours of employees on their own time, supported by the company, facilitated to do engagements, charities, local engagements. And that's not all that people would have done, because not everybody registers all their hours. But then you have the financial match. So HPE will financially match the employees' contributions, and that's running into millions on a global basis. Back to the IDA. So in our Galway organisation, and that was the cybersecurity link, and that is the HPE GreenLake platform, where we're developing all these new additional services that allow you use public cloud, private cloud, get on the systems. We had an acquisition called OpsRamp, again in the recent past. And OpsRamp is like a window into your organization. It's like you clear away all of the fog and you can see all of your applications. You can see your private cloud use, your public cloud, different versions of your public cloud, your various different applications. And it can show you, using telemetrics, it can actually show you the carbon footprint of every use case. So you're sitting there with that sustainability dashboard as well as the OpsRamp visibility. So it's a service you can acquire through HPE GreenLake platform. So, but it's not on our platform. It's not it's not on HPE hardware. It could be on anybody's hardware. But you're getting that metric, you're getting that visibility, and you're getting the telemetrics that tell you these are your choices. So do you want to workload balance? Do you want to change workload locations? And that's all being developed out of HPE in Galway, which is underpinned by the support from the IDA. And I think my gratitude to the IDA really centres around the way they helped HPE in Ireland describe the talent pools, the wealth of engineering, research and development, and engineering capabilities that we have in the west coast of Ireland. The other companies that are here, so you've got that great ecosystems and clustering that has happened. And that, was a story that IDA were able to articulate really well for our leadership and help us make the case that this is really a good place. And I'm delighted to say that, we as an organisation have really embraced Galway as the global centre of excellence for the platform development, HPE GreenLake platform development. So we've had significant new jobs, of very significant jobs, and that will continue. And we launched it in October 2nd with the IDA and with Minister Simon Coveney and various different colleagues from the universities, as well as from local business. And we're continuing on that journey. And in fact, we're looking to support Irish companies and Irish partners to come to Galway to meet the engineers who are building the new platforms, to say, well, what would you need? If you're a HPE GreenLake customer or you're a platform customer, what would make sense to you to help you and enhance your business? So bringing that engineering and development people together with real customers who have real needs. And so we're looking to develop that kind of relationship based out of here, based out of Ireland, based out of Galway, to really enhance our own HPE platform, but also enhance the service offering to companies. So IDA, if you think of it, going back to what I said about October and the work they did, have underpinned that. So, I like to think many years from now, there'll be somebody in a very important engineering job that won't quite remember how this all came together, but that's how it came together.
Fantastic. And I suppose, kind of to wrap up, we always like to look to the future. And just if you were to pull out a few briefly, sort of trends for the future.
I think from a general perspective, to operate and engage in a AI platform or an AI service within your own organization is far harder than people think. Mm-hmm. Accenture reckon that it's about 75% of companies say it's primary, very important, going to divert funding from whatever to support that. Same survey or study said 89% people are not sure how to do it. So it probably tells you it's far more complex than people think. So from our vantage point, we've invested forward in some of our acquisitions. So we acquired Cray Computing, which is supercomputing, and we've got Frontier Computing in the US, we've got Kestrel Computing, and we have got Polaris Computing. All of those are with data organizations, with US energy organizations, heavily focused on climate change, medical advance, diagnostics, wave patterns, wind patterns, renewable energy. So that is the supercomputing end of it. Then AI-enabled infrastructure. So any of the equipment we will deliver to the marketplace will be driven by AI at the core, so that it can be used to AI computing, and then obviously AI software services. So our view is that AI is going to be part of our long-term journey. The management of it, the control of it, and the environment is a critical piece. But being able to enable, and we have other joint ventures. NVIDIA was an announcement we made. AMD, we've the earlier computing I've referred to have AMD relationships. But that NVIDIA relationship that we announced in Discover is, again, a focus on the combination. And I think that's the other key piece. We won't solve on our own, but we will solve together with other joint ventures, other organizations. And the last piece, I think, which is critical to us for the future, is the democratization of AI. So if you're a small entity, and you have a lot of data in your system, you don't have the compute power, because it is data and compute power that takes all that mass, all that unstructured data from your edge, from your own data centers, your own offices, and make sense of it. It's huge compute power required to make that into insights. So you're not going to be able to afford that. But our view is, if we create with relationships and partnerships on our HPE GreenLake platform, that you can come on, buy a slice of supercomputing, diagnostics, insight creation for your business, then we, with those partnerships, will enable any size of organization to take advantage of the benefits that can be derived from AI.
It's like supercomputing as a service, is it?
Supercomputing as a service. And I mean, that's how it has to be democratized. Yeah. Otherwise, it becomes, a non-AI enabled world and an AI enabled world, and you get that huge classic divide happening, the haves and have-nots. Yeah. And from our vantage point, that's not how we would want the future vision to look like. Yeah. We would want that no matter who you are, what organization you are, what kind of budget you have available, that we can help you navigate to get the kind of solutions you need, and to take advantage of investments being made on behalf of the organization that you can get access to.
Well, Ray McGann, we could talk all day about the future of computing and AI and you name it, but it was fantastic to have you here in the studio with us. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you very much.